On a quiet morning in 2014, air traffic control at Caracas Airport received a distress signal from an approaching aircraft. Nothing unusual, except for one terrifying detail. The flight identification code matched a plane that had been missing for 30 years. It was Flight 914, which took off from JFK Airport in 1984 and was never seen again. No wreckage, no distress signal, just gone. Until now. The airport staff expected wreckage, a ghost plane, but what stepped out of that aircraft would haunt them forever. The plane door creaked open, and for the first time in 30 years, Flight 914 returned to Earth. The passengers walked out looking confused, but completely unharmed. Their clothes, crisp, their watches, still ticking, stuck in 1984. Their memories, clear, as if they had just taken off that morning. The pilot's eyes darted around, locking onto the modern planes parked in the distance. These weren't the aircraft he knew. The world outside had changed. A businessman reached into his pocket, pulling out an old newspaper. His hands trembled. The print was still fresh, the pages smooth. He lifted his head, and his breath caught in his throat. A newsstand nearby displayed today's paper. The date read 2014. Panic set in. Murmurs turned into frantic whispers. Then a broken voice cut through the confusion. "Dad!" A man turned sharply toward the sound. His body froze. In front of him stood a woman, eyes brimming with tears. He staggered forward, his lips trembling. No, you were just 5 years old." Her voice cracked. "It's me, it's really me." Another passenger clutched an old family photo, his wife and daughter smiling back at him. He turned frantically to the crowd, searching. "Where's my wife?" A stunned airport official hesitated, then spoke in a hushed voice. "Sir, she passed away 20 years ago." Some passengers fell to their knees. Others stared, paralyzed in disbelief. Tears, cries, shattered realities. Because for them, nothing had changed, but the world had moved on. And in that moment, the horrifying truth sank in. They had lost time, but time had not lost them. The world never saw what happened that night. Flight 914 touched down, but in the wrong era. The moment the wheels screeched against the runway, the authorities moved. Swift, silent, absolute. There would be no leaks, no headlines, no proof this ever happened. The plane was sealed, the passengers escorted off. Some were still gripping their luggage, their fingers locked in a frozen grasp of disbelief. Others stared blankly, their minds struggling to process the impossible. But the real horror was yet to come. DNA tests were conducted. Every strand, every cell was analyzed. Scientists worked in silence, their screens flickering under the dim fluorescent lights. Then, the results. Unbelievable. A perfect match. No deviations, no genetic mutations. Not a single indication that time had touched them. Medical checkups followed. Pulse, blood pressure, neural scans, bone density. Every test confirmed the same terrifying truth. These people were not just alive, they were frozen in time. Impossible, he mutters under his breath. A 30-year gap, yet not a single wrinkle, not a single sign of decay. The questioning began. One by one, the passengers were interviewed. Their stories were identical. Nothing had been out of the ordinary. A routine flight, smooth takeoff, clear skies. Then, the storm. His voice was steady at first, professional, calm. We hit turbulence. It was sudden, like a wall of wind slamming into us. The controls jammed, the instruments failed. The sky turned black. Then his voice faltered, his fingers clenched into fists, his breath hitched. No stars, no earth, just empty space. And then, nothing. We were nowhere. No time, no sound, just silence. And then, the final clue. The black box recording was pulled from the aircraft. Authorities expected to hear the usual. Distorted voices, crackling static, maybe even an emergency distress call. But what they heard should not have been there. At first, it sounded like radio interference. Then it changed. A hum, deep, unnatural, endless. Not static, not interference. Something else. Something alive. And beneath it, a whisper. Faint, distant, a voice. You were never meant to return. The investigation turned to scientists. There was only one logical explanation, if logic even applied. They began analyzing the black box recordings, the electromagnetic readings, the strange energy patterns surrounding Flight 914. And then, a breakthrough. A 30-year cycle. Every 30 years, an anomaly. A disturbance in the Earth's electromagnetic field. A point in space where time fractured. This wasn't the first case, and it wouldn't be the last. The authorities had seen it before. They had covered it up before. But Flight 914 was different. Because this time, they had survivors. And whatever was beyond that storm was watching.